Welcome everybody to Matty C Sports for You and Me, season 2, episode 3. So I have a very special guest, Riley Coche from the Philadelphia Flyers and the Lehigh Valley Phantoms, former enforcer badass, I should say. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing all right. Can't complain.
So I've watched your podcast as of recent, and you just have awesome Philly Flyers all over. And what's it like to reconnect with former players and past players you played with and stuff like that?
It's been really nice, honestly. Kind of get back in the game in a different way. I got out of coaching the Lehigh Valley Phantoms 3 years ago, so doing some youth hockey stuff. I was kind of disconnected from the game, and just the timing was right with my buddy Derek Settlemeyer Nasty there. He's got an awesome little setup with his pro shop there. I was over there one day. I was like, we got to do something with this space with our connections. And so we just kind of turned an idea into a thing and rolled with it. And we wanted to, do a kind of a video podcast type of thing, because, highlight what it looks like to interact with somebody. God knows everything's gone Zoom, and I understand, but just for the guys that are local and in the area, we are going to tap into some Zoom stuff, but just for obvious reasons of just accessing more people, it's not always that easy to get somebody in studio, but it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. You just shooting the shit and talking real talk. It wasn't designed to talk numbers and analytics and to go into detail like that. It's just about humanizing the athlete. And again, a lot of these guys I know, but as we get moving along with this, there'll be a lot of guys I hadn't played with and really, don't have a great relationship with. So it's, building a relationship just through, credibility of playing the game and understand, and have once, been in that situation in some way, shape or form, and just having fun with it. There's all kinds of fun stories and things that go on that, you hear and you can bring up. So it's been good so far. We're 6 deep, and just gonna keep building, getting back in the community. There's so much opportunity with Flyer fans and Flyer type of events that, it's just getting creative with it and, getting it out there and, building a brand. Really, it's what it's all about.
Oh, exactly. I mean, I got, my brand here and, helping local industries like up here, Theory Wellness, they're a type of cannabis dispensary here in Massachusetts. So, yeah, it's a great thing to give back. And, I tell you, like they're in Philadelphia, like the people are really nice. Like, cause I came there when I took my wife there for like, I think it was our honeymoon or something, and went to go see a game. And we were wearing military appreciation T-shirts for the Bruins, and then we had Bruins fans next to us, and they were like ruthless to people out, like if you're wearing a Bruins jersey. But like, unfortunately, the Flyers lost 6-1 that game. But it's crazy. Like I saw it myself, but did you see it when you were playing? Like if you guys were not playing well, they would boo you like right there, like your own fans.
Oh yeah. I've seen it several times. Yeah. Yeah. It's, you can't blame them. It's one of those things. They invest their money into, entertainment, into watching a product, and they expect a certain standard of hockey. And if, it's not, they say always about the win. It's about the effort, and, the wins usually come along with the effort. But, if they see that the effort's not there, they're going to let you know. It's
Right.
again, they're
Yeah.
spending their hard-earned money on tickets and for the experience. And the last thing they want to do is see a team not giving it 100% or 110%, a blue-collared city. So I think that's it. I mean, I think it's a fair, it's a fair thing. I mean, it's like you're getting paid a lot of money to perform, as a collective and as individuals. And if you can't meet that standard, I mean, they're gonna let you know. So I mean, they're just they're old school. I think Boston's a little bit the same way. Maybe not as hardcore, but I know the Boston.
Um.
Maybe
Yeah.
maybe not quite as bad, but whatever. They just they're honest. Let's put it that way.
Right. We are very much so. Flyers fans that came, not bad. Toronto fans, not bad. But when Montreal French
Oh yeah,
Canadian guys come down in loads of buses,
yeah.
it's gonna be trouble. That was my college days, so I won't say we fought in the stairwell, but
Yeah, no, that's a different animal too. Yeah, the Boston Montreal rivalry is probably similar more to like Philly and Pittsburgh or something, you know, where there's like this is so
yeah.
it's almost like religious groups or political parties, or it's almost yeah,
Right, right. That's
almost
what we
good
should be
people
worried
talk.
about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I know what you mean though, for sure. You can imagine.
Um, so yeah, going back to you and your playing days. So like, man, you fought some heavy dudes, man. It's just amazes me. Like you fought like George LaRock, and then Aaron Roy must have had like a beacon on you because he was always trying to get at you. Or Aaron Roy, I should say.
Andre War, yeah.
Or Andre Roy, yeah. He always had something against you. And that toe to toe with Sean Thornton stuff. I mean, like, does that like venture back out of hockey? Do you guys become friends, or like is it just like you don't talk, or
No, you know it's interesting with like the true legitimate the heavyweights, like the true you categorize an enforcer. There's so much respect towards each other that, you know, there's a lot of guys that I didn't know at the time that I ended up meeting after and becoming friendly with and doing some cannabis and mushroom work with, and you know what I mean, like healing stuff. And then other guys that you never actually really ever get to know out of the fight, but there's always like a mutual respect there. I fought in my roommates and fought guys I played with, and you know, I've smoked some weed with a lot of guys I've fought, and you know, again, like helping guys, you know, heal later on in their lives with this stuff. So, you know, it's like that warrior mentality, you know, that true, like just honor and respect. But then, you know, obviously like outside of that role, you know, there's like cheap shots and there's like probably some little more beef going on with the fight and, you know, and with the emotions in the game. But, you know, when you talk about like true legitimate heavyweights going at it, unless there was a cheap shot or something below the belt somewhere down the line where they're like, oh, you know, there's some beef. It's like all pure mutual respect. And, you know, and I loved it. You know, a guy like Sean Thornton, I've spoken with him a few times after the games back throughout, you know, our old minor league days together when we fought a bunch. And then, you know, just like, so I don't really know him outside of just knowing that he's a good guy because, you know, after the fight, we're like, awesome job. You know, it's like, cause it was nice to fight a guy like more our size and we'd open up with each other and, you know, and so, I know from what I hear too, that he's you know, a genuine human and, you know, really down
yeah,
good guy. And you know, and I think you have to be to some degree to be in that role, right? I mean, you have to have at least a piece of you that's selfless to want to go and take punches from George LaRock and Donald Bashir and Brian McGrath. Like, you know, like,
I know, dude.
yeah,
Like
obviously there's
it's crazy.
a selfish piece that, yeah, I needed to do that to ever play in the NHL. But like, I mean, man, I mean, I was just, you know, like you're the sacrificial lamb. Like, you know, it's like it's like, okay, well, now I got to go fight this guy to keep the peace. And it's like, well, no one else is going to do it. You know, it's
Yeah,
like,
no shit. Yeah.
but you know, so yeah, so there's just like that real, you know, piece of character that seems to be pretty consistent amongst all the guys that I've come across with that I've fought in, or maybe necessarily didn't fight, but know who they are and they're legitimate heavyweights. But they all have that, you know, that, I don't know, just that respect for them because it's a tough job and no one wants to do it. And it's, again, it was more self-policing in that enforcer role than fighting because you're a cheap shot, or you know what I mean, like you cheap shot at someone. Now you're fighting because like of your own selfish actions, which, you know, there's a lot of guys that get mistaken for that role. And it's different. It's a different mentality. So the respect value is much higher when you talk about true, legitimate, tough guys.
Yeah. I mean, I've only seen for things like two times I've seen people that were like that just deserve to be fought upon. Like, I mean, I didn't really like how Matt Cook did with Mark Savard.
Right.
I thought that was a cheap shot, and you know, no forgiveness for that. And you know, Claude Lemieux always was trying to take people out back in his day of hockey. You know, so it's like I like how you say there's a neutral respect amongst like fighters. Like I wouldn't say fighters, just pretty much hockey players. I mean, Sean Thornton, I've seen him numerous times when I went to games, and you know, he's a good guy around charity, his own charity, and you with you're helping out other people yourself with your back check stuff, like it's good stuff to keep you healthy and spiritually in a good space with your stuff. And I find that very interesting. Like how does that stuff work that you're producing?
Well, I'm into a few different things, but you're talking about Body Check Wellness, which is a hemp-derived CBD and
Hmm.
functional mushroom company. So, for the listeners that don't know, I'll just kind of give the 101. So it's hemp-derived CBD. So it's grown below 0.3% THC. So it is a variety of cannabis. Most of our products do have again below 0.3% THC. Making them full spectrum. So they have CBD as the most well-known minor cannabinoid that people are aware of, and kind of hearing about the craze. And then other minor cannabinoids, there's over 115 or so identified cannabinoids. So it's a pretty diverse array of compounds within the cannabis plant. Terpenes, the whole bit. And promoting wellness, right? So wellness through managing inflammation, wellness through managing of stressors and anxiety, wellness in the sense of promoting true legitimate sleep, which most people struggle with. And
Absolutely.
and
That's
believe it
me
or
right
not,
there.
the U.S. government holds a patent on cannabinoids as neuroprotectants. So, me being a former enforcer and being punched in the face several thousand times, I thought it would be wise to start giving my brain some love. So,
Yeah.
so when I really started to dive in in the science of cannabinoids, and then outside of just the CBD and the minor cannabinoid space, again, these are non-psychoactive or non-psychotropic, and the psychoactive meaning they do help with anxiety. So they really do help, that general feeling of general well-being, but they're
Hmm.
non-psychotropic, meaning there's no high associated with them because of such a small amount of THC.
Right.
And functional mushrooms, also known as medicinal mushrooms, legal ones, lion's mane, cordyceps, chaga, reishi, agarikon, turkey tail, mushrooms of that nature that are adaptogens. A lot of them really support the immune response and the immune system. Chinese medicines have been using these mushrooms forever. They are anti-inflammatory in their right, most of them. They really help with focus and sustain energy, like this cordyceps and lion's mane are really been known for like the brain and focus. So it's not only just about recovery. So recovery in the sense that I talk about flushing inflammation. So whether you're an athlete or not, we're always flushing inflammation, right? Something can be inflammatory or anti-inflammatory, mainly food.
Yeah.
Whole foods are either inflammatory or, those are anti-inflammatory, but processed foods would be, inflammatory. So you can look at all your medicine and everything you do as inflammatory, anti-inflammatory, but we're always trying to flush inflammation, and we're always trying to manage stressors, right? Most people do a very poor job at that. Therefore, that's where addiction usually kicks in. It's in some way, shape, or form, substance abuse, whether it's food, generally
Right.
sugar, high sugar foods, high salt foods, but sugar is, the definition of a Schedule I drug. Highly
Oh
addictive,
yeah. Oh
no
yeah.
medical value. So you go around the country and see what we're addicted to. It's mainly food and alcohol, right? So we're going to express and we're going to lean on something when we don't manage stress and anxiety. They're paired, they come hand in hand, and usually inflammation comes with that too, right? Where there's inflammation, there's stress, and where there's stress, there's inflammation, and then anxiety is just a byproduct of too much of that. And then you don't sleep, right? You're anxious and you're stressed, and and then it generally leads to your sleep routine. And then most people don't sleep, and they're tired, they're fatigued, their adrenals are taxed, and then they wake up in the morning, and then you have to rely on stimulants or again sugars and things that again over time we get in the cycle of dis-ease. I mean, it's right, eventually it's going to lead to something, right? Stress just manifests itself into some sort of disease state based on genetics. So the whole idea as a human is to manage stress. I mean, it's manage stress, manage inflammation, and you're well. So that just paired with the mushrooms, the combination is this pure, wellness. It's recovery and it's performance optimizing, human daily activities, right? It's just like whether you work to 9 to 5 or you're an athlete or you're a doctor or you're a lawyer. I mean, focus is really the key and being good at anything, right? It's focus. As everyone says focus, I mean, it's an overused term, but like truly being able to focus means that you're able to not be distracted, not be distracted by pain, or not be distracted by anxiety or ADHD or addiction, all these
Yeah.
things that are essentially byproducts of not being able to manage inflammation and stress. So I know I got on a long, tangent there, but wellness seems to be complicated to understand, but it's really not that complicated when you understand it from a perspective of inflammation and anxiety, because everything is like everything builds off those two things.
Yeah.
Generally life just kind of, it's not feeling balanced when we're stressed, and anxious, and then generally there's some other inflammation going on somewhere. So we got to tackle that daily. We got to get ahead of it. And, and in a perfect world, people would buy into the notion of, food is medicine, medicine is food. And you look at your food as exactly that, a medicine, right? It should
Right.
be anti-inflammatory, and it should be stress reducing, right? It should be very digestible and bioavailable. It should build your immune system. Unfortunately, we live in an industrialized world that we have industrialized food system, right? I mean, whether
Absolutely. Yeah.
animals and processed foods, it's all nutrient depleted. In fact, beyond being nutrient depleted, it's full of chemicals and preservatives and additives and stuff that promotes death and decay. So I mean, it's like you could pay the doctor now, or you pay the farmer now, the doctor later. It's like we have the choice to be feeding our bodies proper nutrition, and then in turn we wouldn't get so inflamed and so stressed and so anxious. And I know a lot about this space from personal experience, and have been living that way, and how when I retired at 28, man, like I was beat up, my body stressed. I felt like I was 80 years old, but I was looking at the way I was living, man. I was like, geez,
Yeah.
I'm grinding, man. I'm grinding. I'm lifting way more than I should, stressing my joints, eating way more than I ever should, and eating the wrong things, boozing, partying, staying up late, sleeping poorly. And then I was like considered a professional athlete. I'm like, God, how did I even make it that far the way I was living? The human body is so resilient. It's trying to live. Living organisms are just trying to live. We're like essentially
Yeah.
killing
That's true.
ourselves,
Yeah.
right? Killing ourselves with these daily habits. So I just, took it, pretty aggressively, and said, guess what? I mean, I got years of damage from fighting and partying and the whole bit. I mean, I gotta do something with my brain. So between, cannabinoids and mushrooms, if you dive into the research, I mean, these things support the brain, they support the gut,
Oh
and
yeah.
and the GI, where the immune system lies, and therefore they support the brain, the whole gut and brain connection. So I'm learning all this by using them and self-experimenting and being in that space. But that's the world I'm in. I'm just selling wellness. It's not a cure-all. I mean, you have to buy into the other dynamics of life, and calming stress other ways too, right? So we can't just keep adding more stress from other areas of our lives. So there is some discipline involved outside of supplementation, but yeah, Body Check Wellness is a hemp derived CBD and functional mushroom company.
That's awesome, man. I never knew about functioning mushroom type of things like that. That's really interesting to me, because I've heard of
Next
so many other
mushroom
things.
plays are the next cannabis. Whether you're talking about functional mushrooms like legal, therapeutic medicinal mushrooms, and then psilocybin mushrooms, like much like cannabis with, it's a bigger, obviously a more potent psychedelic, but same type of thing. I mean, it's got all kinds of healing properties, alkaloids, and all these types of compounds that aren't being used right now appropriately, anyways.
Right, exactly. There's no education towards the pros of it. It's more like they think of it as like the 1970s and everybody's tripping out of control type of thing, where
Yeah.
I mean, you just educated me like that this is something that can be beneficial in the healing process. And and it's so interesting with your brand. And then I've talked to Darren McCarty before. I've talked to him twice about his cannabis connection in Michigan. See,
Mhm.
like as a resident of Massachusetts, I can't get stuff from Michigan.
Right.
Or I talked to a woman Muay Thai fighter who was from Toronto, and same thing, all in the cannabis, edibles, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
like
Angelina
I'm getting
Black,
so
right?
much. Yeah,
Angelina
yeah.
Black, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
She is such a cool girl, man.
Yeah.
She's a wicked good shit. And I'm just getting education everywhere, and it's like culminating with sports and stuff like that. I find it like that it's better that you guys are, using this stuff to better your health and in mind after hockey, after Muay Thai, after stuff like that. So I find it amazing that you guys are doing well with this. And I'll put the link up to where you can get this stuff with your Body Check Wellness up in the link. But yeah, so I'm glad you guys are doing well. So on to my next thing. How do you feel about your with this whole with the whole thing with the new division that is going on in the NHL right now?
I think it's just what had to happen to get it done. I don't think it's, I think it's, obviously crazy that you play the same team that many times, but I understand why. It is what it is. I think it's a temporary solution just to get
Yeah.
moving and get some games and to play as close as a real season as you're going to get. But yeah, nothing normal about that. But I think it's just adapting to the climate, I guess.
Well, we do play you in an hour and a half.
Yeah,
So,
I know, right? Yeah, exactly.
what do you think of last game they played? Big good fought battle between the Bruins and Flyers last Thursday. Yeah, Thursday.
Yeah, I didn't actually see it, but I think it's the one the Flyers blew a lead, right?
Yeah,
The,
they were down
the,
by 2.
the
I meant they
Bruins.
were up by 2.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I think yeah, I think they just got comfortable and blew a lead there, and then landed up letting the game slip away. But they early on the first few games there, they're really showing like they're a really good team, and there's some chemistry there, and then like any season, there's like dips in play. They got blown out
Mhm.
game before the Boston game there. But it happens, happens to the
Oh
best.
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just trying to stay more on the positive win side than having those fluctuations where the media and people love to rip on. So I think, yeah, I mean, I think they're in really good shape. I mean, they got great goaltending, a 1-2 combo there that work pretty well together. They got some young blood in the overall lineup from the goaltender, all the way through the forwards there. They they added Nolan Patrick and Oscar from last, well, didn't play last year, but from the previous year. So I mean, it's just like signing 2 free agents. I mean, I think they're going to be competitive, and I think they're going to give any team a run for their money. I mean, I think they're better than they were last year, and yeah. So I mean, yeah, I think it's early, but the team that stays the most consistent, like as always. But I mean, the game is so condensed that you can't have 3 or 4 bad games. You just can't afford it. So I don't see them being like that. They're always going to have an off
No.
game here and there. You just hope that your off's not that off. But yeah, no, I'm optimistic that they're going to have a pretty good run.
Dude, their fucking cross ice passing is so unreal. Like they find so much openings. Like Kevin Hayes and Voracek and Drew, and like all that offense can do cross ice passes. Like it's like nobody, like the Bruins defense the other night, and them playing Buffalo too. I'm talking about your Flyers. Like their cross ice passing is ridiculous, and they know how to shoot the puck. And they're unselfish type of team right now, and they're clicking. So I feel like you said, I think the Flyers are gonna show some good stuff this year. And my Bruins, well, not my Bruins, but the Bruins, I think the Bruins are gonna be decent. They may get into the playoffs, but it's a tough division to play in what they're playing in. So
Yeah.
the loss of Chara is tough on that defense because it's a lot of young kids.
Yeah.
Charlie McAvoy is about the size of my ankle. So I mean, it's going to be an interesting season for sure. I mean, the Flyers and I think Washington are going to be the big dogs up in the what do we call it? Still Atlantic, right? I think so.
I think
What the
so.
division is. Yeah. Um so yeah, I mean, what's your prediction of the Flyers this year? What are you thinking? They're going to be first in the division or
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to be one. It'll be. I mean, if the actual, yeah, I mean, they'll be right behind Washington. I mean, they'll be up there the whole season. I think. You know what I mean? Like, um, they, I don't see how they can go a stretch and blow 2 or 3 games. I just like with the firepower they got so much young juice. I just have a hard time believing that they would like drop off that poorly. To slide. They're going to lose some, but yeah, I think Washington will finish top of that side. And then, but I mean,
yeah.
division and Flyers should be able to finish top of their division. I mean,
Yeah, I just think that, when I saw Buffalo, they're a very fast team, but I think they're going to run out of gas within the season. I'm just going off of early games with what I've seen. I mean, the Flyers played them well the second game. I think the first game was kind of a fluke with when I think they lost 6-1,
yeah, that was
something like that.
yeah.
But I
uh,
think they're going to start to click now. Something's going to heat up with the
I think
Flyers for
I think
sure.
so too. Again, I just look at some of these young guys that just got, like got so much to prove, like between Konechny, who's leading the NHL in goals, I believe, right next to
Yeah.
McDavid. And then again, a guy like Oscar, I think he's consistently going to be a point a game guy, honestly, like this
Hmm.
guy, and they're veteran guys are really good leaders. And he's a really good leader, Hayes, adding him in there. But yeah, going back to the goaltending, having a guy like Carter Hart, and then having Brian Elliott as like that more
Oh, that's a
mature.
yeah.
It's like the Flyers haven't had consistent goaltending since Bob Roski, which they traded him away. But before that, it was like since Hexy. You talk about Flyers are waiting for that goal. You sign Brizgalov, or you signed Brizgalov and trade away Bob Grofsky, and that was your franchise guy. So here we are. I think Carter Hart is that franchise guy. That's gonna, when you have a guy like that, that's so focused, so dialed in, so mature, and then you got this team up front, that guy Provorov. Like this guy's got another couple dimensions in him.
Hmm.
These young guys that the draft picks are kind of finally paying off here. I don't know. I like the Flyers a lot. Not just being biased, but I think this has been a long time coming that they're in this type of shape. But now it's just staying healthy. Obviously
Hmm.
you got to win games and stay healthy, and once you get to the playoffs, it's just like a totally different energy. But I don't think they're gonna have a problem scoring goals.
No, no.
Because they seem like they got 4 lines that could score goals potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like the Bruins have a good top two line. It's just the third and fourth is just inconsistent, I think,
Yeah.
because you've had people, a veteran like Bergeron, who I think should have been captain before Chara, but that's just me because he was there since the dawn of time. Um,
Yeah.
you got Marchand, you got David Pasternak, Charlie Coyle, new up and coming. I mean, he was in Minnesota, but nobody really knew him until he came here.
Yeah.
The list just goes on. David Krejci, but you know, um, and with Rask and Halak, I mean, Halak has been backup, but he's a decent backup. But when Rask left during the playoffs last year in the bubble, you could tell that the Bruins were hurting because of Rask leaving. So I think if they continue to be like that and survive without Char and pick up another defenseman, there's a good chance that they could maybe get another run. So we'll see what happens. And
Yeah.
another question I had for you is in the AHL and with Lehigh Valley and that are they playing this year or did they cancel the AHL again this
Oh,
year?
they are playing. There was 3 or 4 teams that dropped out in the league. But they're starting, I want to say next week. Next week, their training camp starts. So they're playing a 36 game, 33 or 36 game season or something like that. And it's very condensed. It's similar to the NHL as far as like you're playing the same team over and over and over again. It's just travel, right? It's travel, it's budget, it's logistics. It's just keeping
Yeah,
it
right.
simple. Because they're, I mean, especially in the AHL, they need fans in their buildings to make it work, right? I mean,
I don't know
NHL.
if you ever played in Worcester.
Oh yeah, yeah, I have, yeah,
Yeah, there's
several
about
times.
two
Like,
people
buddy
that
up
fills
there.
the.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, they're playing. So that's good. I was optimistic that they were, but there was a lot of people saying that they weren't, just because of, again, if you can't sell tickets, and like how is that going
Mhm.
to sustain itself? So, but yeah, they're gonna crank it out, and it's good. It's good for hockey to be able to somehow salvage something out of it.
Are you still in contact with people in Lehigh Valley too?
A few, it's a
Yeah.
few guys I'm still in contact with there. Yeah, players and just community people. So yeah.
And when you played there, for how did it feel when you won the Calder?
So that was in Philly. So the Phantoms were Philadelphia
Oh,
Phantoms.
you weren't there. Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
So
they
that
were in Philly.
they
Okay.
were in Philly for year like for like 10 years. And then they decided to tear down the Spectrum there, and they turned it into like a whole sports venue. But they temporarily moved the team up to Adirondack for 5. It was 5 years the team was there, and then they moved it to Lehigh Valley. So when I retired from the Flyers, the team was up in Adirondack at the time, and they knocked down the Spectrum and everything like that. So moved up there for 5 years again while they're building this rink in Allentown. So when I came back, when it was Adirondack Phantoms when we were up there, and then it landed up being Lehigh Valley Phantoms. So yeah, so I was in Philly when we won the Calder Cup. It was an awesome experience because it was at the old Spectrum there. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
That's awesome. Did you so like in the minor league, is it more fun? Like do you have more fun than in the NHL? Is it more serious in the NHL?
I don't know, man. It's fun in every league. Um, yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, there's still quite a bit of partying in the NHL. Probably say too much, honestly. I think it's changed a little bit, but I participated in just too much of it. But probably just a little more loose in the American
Mhm.
League, as far as like we got a good chunk of guys working their way up, right? You got these guys that are under
Mhm.
contract, and they're working for a job, so they're like, obviously extremely dialed in. They're early in their pro careers, and they've got something to look forward and work towards, right? You got another group of guys that, more in the later category of, like, they maybe already had their stint in the NHL, they played already, they're signed as more of an American League player, a veteran player in the American League. And you got some that care a lot, and you got some that, maybe necessarily are kind of like, I'm just good at hockey. I can still, make $150,000 a year and play in the minors, and, collect a
Yeah.
paycheck. So, maybe that these guys go out a little bit more than they should. But yeah, the league is a very professional league. I mean, the guys are really focused and really good shape, and, like, like high end athletes. So I think there's a lot less of it than when I played, as far as like the whole is just like, you can't just be a drunk and then be a professional hockey
Yeah.
player. There's
Yeah.
still a lot of drinking, but, like, back in the day, it was like you like literally leave practice and you go to the bar all day and sit around and drink beer, it's changed a lot like that. But you know how it is, like, when there's an
Oh yeah.
opportunity to have a green light, the party starts, and gets going, and the party gets escalated, and they take advantage of that. But um, yeah, I mean, there's it in both leagues, but it's just spot picking, and it might be a little bit more of it in the American League, because, again, you got maybe a few extra guys that might not be as committed and don't really give a shit or whatnot. But yeah, it's in both of them for sure. I was thinking back to, like, the East Coast Hockey League and the Central Hockey League, which, I mean, there were some disasters in those leagues for sure.
Oh, I'm
But
sure. I'm sure.
oh my god! But I've seen guys, a ton of guys go through substance abuse stuff in the NHL and AHL. Like, doesn't discriminate. It's just these guys self-medicate. Going back to earlier, it's like they're stressed. They got performance anxiety. They got home life anxiety. And traditionally, a lot of people self-medicate with alcohol. They don't even realize that it's self-medicating, and they're numbing physical pain. It's easy after a game. It's like, traditionally, guys, like, well, let's go have a beer. Let's go drink a beer, 2 beers. I mean, we're already dehydrated. We're going to drink something that's going to dehydrate us, on a
Yeah.
cellular level even more, dehydrate the
Right.
brain. If you're playing a contact sport, maybe you fought. I mean, how many times did I go and have beers after the game? Get punched in the face several times, and then go, let's go drink some beer, and then dehydrate the brain even more, and then have shitty sleep. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, but it's going back to decompressing with booze, right? Versus say, something like cannabis. Yeah, talk about THC, CBD. It's just like a totally different type of a way of decompressing, right? But there is a lot of mindfulness now. A lot of guys don't, it's like it's not like it was where everyone does go for beers. A lot of guys
Right.
don't drink alcohol at all anymore. They're usually they're cannabis guys. They understand cannabis. They understand how to relax, understand how to unwind, how to manage stress. Because there's a proper way. Let me say a proper way. There's a much better way, and then there's a very improper way. You know what I mean? And essentially, think you're doing the same thing, and be like, people are like, well, you just get high. I'm like, well, I don't just get high. I mean, I'm doing it with an intention. I'm mindfully using cannabis to manage my stressors, to be more creative, to sleep better, to feel better. It's like, if that's what,
Exactly. Yeah.
but versus like, well, it's like, essentially it's like you could say the same thing about alcohol, right? It's like, well, you're just trying to unwind and do those things, but unfortunately alcohol doesn't do those things like that. It doesn't help with a proper night's sleep. It actually gives you a much worse sleep, right? It's not real true deep rest. It's inflammatory. It's sugar. You know what I mean? You have to digest it, harden the liver. So it's all these things. It's like, so at the end of the day, you're trying to accomplish the same thing. Have a couple laughs, feel good, but they're kind of polar opposites of what they're actually doing for the body and the mind. So it's, there's a lot more mindfulness in sports. Again, guys are, current guys, former guys, they're using the proper tools. There's still a handful of guys, getting swallowed up. Say handful, there's probably more than a handful, but guys getting swallowed up in, the oxy or the prescription drug addiction.
Yeah. I was just going to ask you that. Yeah.
That's a real
Still?
thing. It's plagued society, and it bleeds over into sport. But I think from what I've seen with the hockey world specifically, I'll speak to that since I'm not too far out of it, and I'm friendly with a lot of current guys still. Is that there's so much mindfulness in the game. Like, you got a mindfulness coach, you got, all these different strength and conditioning guys. After games are turning off lights and trying to just calm the nervous system. Like, shit you'd never see back in the day. We're drinking coffee, we're drinking Red Bull, taking Sudafed if there was speed, it's like whatever you could get to get backed up. Now it's like, okay, well, I got to calm the nervous system because we got to promote sleep. You know what I mean? So there is still a few guys that, still lean into those old school ways of managing the grind, but there's so much more mindfulness into it. It's actually really nice to see because it's harm reduction, right? It's drug diversion. We're trying to get guys off hard drugs and addictive, substances and give them a better life, right? Better recovery time, better focus, clarity, better immune systems so they don't get sick, protecting the brain, all these things. And a lot of whether these guys know it or not, they're doing themselves a huge service for longevity, and just overall recovery time and performance. And it's amazing to see in such a short amount of time, even though the science has kind of always been there. It's never really been at that stage where people can accept it because there's so many different delivery systems. There's so many different varieties of whether you're talking about THC cannabis or, hemp derived CBD. There's so many different, again, delivery systems between tinctures, transdermal patches, creams, topicals, flower vape, suppositories, I mean, it's all these different,
I know everything.
You name it. So it's legitimately plant medicine, sports medicine. It's sports recovery. So, I mean, the sooner teams adopt this as an organization, start recovering with cannabinoids. Again, I'm not talking necessarily about THC, like CBD, and some of these other cannabinoids as recovery agents. I mean, it's like, it's always about recovery time now, especially in this 56 game season where you're playing literally every other night. I mean, it's like when you don't recover properly, you're tired. And when you're tired, you perform less, but you're also at risk for injury. That's when soft tissue muscle injuries happen, or soft tissue injuries happen. So it's always about protecting your investment. If you can protect them through anti-inflammatory, manage them stress stressors and anxiety, promote sleep, and then on top of that, protect the brain. Imagine you can, you could shave back 2 weeks on a concussion, or maybe a 2 weeks concussion is like a day to day, or because the science is showing that if you protect your brain beforehand through cannabis, with cannabinoids,
Right. Yeah.
that
Yep.
you're actually protecting your brain to some degree, that it's anti-inflammatory again, it's protection. So, if it's your star player going into playoffs, Claude Giroux, and, he minimized his concussion 2 or 3 weeks because of, his daily regimen of cannabinoids. Well, that could be the difference of making the playoffs, not making the playoffs, the difference between winning the Stanley Cup, not winning the Stanley Cup. So at the end of the day, it's you gotta be honest with what we're doing, with our players and how we're treating them, and what tools we're giving them. If at the end of the day, you're only as good as the guys you select and put on that roster, but you got to
Hmm.
keep them well, and you got to keep them performing as high as possible, recovering as best as possible. So if you're missing a couple of those pieces, or you're not focused enough on those pieces, that could be the difference of winning and losing, honestly, at the end of the day. And I know I sound like, yeah, well, how the hell do you quantify that? Well, I mean, you just start calculating, games lost for certain injuries, and you talk about recovery time, and, the science is showing, again, the natural anti-inflammatories and neuroprotectants legitimately protecting the brain. I mean, it's something to look at at the very least, right? I mean, the fact that the
Right.
US holds a patent on it, cannabinoids as neuroprotectants and antioxidants, tells a lot. So people are catching on, leagues are catching on. It's just still a lot of, red tape around how to, promote
How
it,
to promote
support
it. Yeah.
it. So
So yeah, going on with that is like, like for a long time in different kinds of sports, cannabis was like taboo. Like that was like, whoa, like we can't have this in our league. Like the NFL had it. Now it's like slowly getting introduced, and now the UFC has made it official to do that too. I think hockey is very important for it to do that because of all the very physical. I think they're more physical than football because of all the wear and tear on your body, getting hit in the boards. You could take a minor hit to the boards in some way or form. It may affect you at another point in time, and you
yeah,
don't even know it. And like you said, with the recovery time, like with Giroux, if he was out 3 weeks, if he helps with his stuff, then he could recover a lot quicker. So going into that, I think that ambassadors, I would call you an ambassador, like of this medicines and cannabinoids and stuff like that, and Darren McCarty and like a lot more people. Like you guys were big in the game, you still are. I think that's a good thing to have, and I'm hoping that the NHL will start enforcing that shit.
yeah, they got some work to do. The NHL Alumni Association did partner with a large cannabis company in Canada, Canopy Growth, actually the largest cannabis company on the planet, I believe still.
I have stock
Um,
in that. Thank
oh,
you.
yeah, good. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I think they're doing all right. I mean, they go up and
yeah,
down a little bit, but
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think they put in like $20 million to study, again, CBD and the brain. So that conversation is, long had, and I haven't seen any data from this. I don't even think this actual research is being done yet. I think it was more of a PR piece. Canopy, I believe, has a suite at Maple Leaf Gardens that they actually can't advertise as Canopy. But soon as Health Canada allows cannabis companies to advertise, they're basically flicking the switch, and they're basically going to be the number one sponsor of the NHL. They're going to take
That's
over,
awesome.
whether it's what is it, Molson Canadian, or I bet you it pushes out the number one alcohol sponsor. It's going to be interesting how it plays out because they're positioned to do that. But we haven't gotten as far as like through each organization having some sort of cannabinoid therapy protocols. Again, just like multivitamins. Guys are taking multivitamins, and they're probably the most expensive urine on the planet. But actually taking cannabinoids, much like you would take a multivitamin, like a daily essential. So you
Mm.
constantly know that your players are getting 100 milligrams, 200 milligrams of CBD, natural anti-inflammatory daily. And so you can kind of monitor, what the, what's going on. And then the guys get concussions. I mean, and this and that, there's, sleep, and there's different combinations of CBN and these other minor cannabinoids that really promote sleep. But you could actually, really customize something like that for these teams who haven't got there yet. Obviously Canada, it's fully legal, but this, imaginary line between Canada and the US is a pretty complicated line. So how are you going to say, okay, you guys in Canada can have cannabis and the guys down south can't, and then, guys get caught with it traveling, and then there's who knows what type of liability involved in that. So it's right now, it's kind of just like, okay, well, still a banned substance. They actually still test for THC. So to me, in my opinion, they should just remove the THC drug test altogether. It's not a performance enhancing drug, and it's a medicine. And I mean, by you keeping it on your drug, your banned substance list, you're just telling everyone that this is a bad thing and that we're not allowed to use this, when in fact you're essentially pushing them to use booze and harder drugs.
Exactly.
So drug diversion is, what message are you sending? So just don't test for them. Just don't test for it, and then you just remove that whole thing, and giving guys the confidence to do what they need to do to feel good, so they don't run the risk of addiction. So, we'll get there. I think the NFL did remove the THC test, did it not?
I believe it did, but it was a slow and hard process.
It was a hard
process. A couple of players did quit because of that, and then they're like, "Hey, come back. We're sorry." Well, like, I'm a professional
how many
athlete.
lives that's ruined? Just that policy alone, how many lives that's ruined? You know what I mean? Giving guys bad raps because they pop with some weed, and to make them look like, like there's some sort of criminal. It's like, geez, I'm like, you ever think that herb is medicinal and that they're using it just because they're trying to feel okay? And then, you know what I mean? And they're trying to feel like human and trying to manage some shit. Oh man, it really bothers me. I mean, especially the black community. The black community is been, so affected by it, and that's the picture that you paint too, right? Is just like, okay, we got caught with some weed. It's like we probably got some guns and stuff in there too, make everything look all gangster, and you know what I mean, and dark, right? It's just like, well, no, it's just, it is still the same plant that even if a white guy got caught with it, it's still the same plant, right? It's just like all of a sudden you're making it seem like it's a lot worse than it is. And the most negative thing about cannabis prohibition is that the outcome is worse than the actual laws itself, right? I mean, it's like it causes more crime because you're bringing in like the black market, and then brings in more and you're putting people in prison, private prison systems, for carrying and possessing a plant. And, you go in there and it's like, well, you're not exactly around, people that you want to be learning from. And, it's like, okay, well, so what is the end game here? You know what I mean? It's like you're penalizing someone for choosing a certain way of self-medicating.
Right.
And you're ruining their lives, ruining their families' lives. They can't get jobs, and you're pulling them out of their family system and putting them into a prison system. And, and it's terrible for so many years. So I like to see that, in the near future that, the cannabis industry recognizes this enough to try and make it right. I know there's a lot of guys are getting, their records expunged or whatever and getting released, but it doesn't repair the damage that was caused. But at least they're trying to, in some states, there's like this Last Prisoners Project. I don't know if you've seen them. They're really helping push, the non-violent drug offenses and, kind of getting
I hadn't seen
stuff
that.
like that. It's a pretty nice organization that's doing some good work, but there's a lot of work to done because there's so much damage that was caused by it, so.
Yeah, I think at some point it's going to be a good thing for each state. I mean, you're not going to have to pay like money to have a card, or we'll be able to say, where I'm from, Boston, travel to Vermont or New Hampshire. Like, I can't go up there and go to a dispensary because I don't have the state license to get the medicinal marijuana up there. So it's like, I really hope it all comes into play. But going to my final question for you, Riley, is what's your future plan with the wellness and Nasty Knuckles. What's next for you?
Well, Nasty Knuckles, you know, I just think continue to just grow it, to grow the brand, you know, get more guests, put more content out there. I'd like to see us branch outside the studio, and do, you know, some community stuff as, you know, COVID regulations allow it, right? Just like getting the community and, you know, pairing some of our ideas with music, you know, community events, you know, with the music, and doing a ball hockey type of combination. So eventually that type of stuff will happen, but the podcast itself, will continue to grow. And then on the wellness side, I got a lot of interesting stuff going on, you know, the hemp derived CBD, you know, functional mushroom body check brand. We're just getting going on a project we started with a state university, building out an extraction facility. So we're doing cannabinoid extraction as well as mushroom extraction, in phase two. It's State University. It's actually the oldest historically Black university in the U.S., Cheney University. So we're working on a program to give back to the Black community with that program. In the mushroom space, psilocybin mushroom space, I'm actually involved in an advisor for a psilocybin company out of Jamaica called Wake, and they grow psilocybin mushrooms legally, and functional ones as well. And they do psilocybin and sound clinical immersions there in Jamaica legally. And I'm kind of the athlete liaison for help building out the athlete retreat arm, where again, where you're talking about TBI or PTSD or depression or OCD, any mental health issues, really, psilocybin mushrooms have an amazing impact on the brain, mental health, spiritual health. So I'm doing some stuff with them, and just kind of building out that athlete arm. And then my own personal wellness journey, actually in the middle of my 200-hour yoga teacher training. So I've been, you know, practicing yoga for, you know, since I retired. So it's almost 10 years now. And my practice has evolved, as most practices do, whatever you're practicing. And I really, you know, really love the philosophy of yoga. And, you know, so I'm obsessed with, you know, the physical version of it, but I'm also more obsessed with like the philosophy of it. But I just felt like, you know, called to do that. You know, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with it when it's all said and done, but just my own personal growth and everything. It ties into my, you know, my understanding of, you know, managing stress and, you know, just feeling good and the whole bit. So yeah, that's kind of it as far as wellness goes and Nasty Knuckles. But yeah, got a ton of irons in the fire, and it's been good because it's almost like all these things are kind of coming together at once, and they're all kind of somewhat tied in together. You know, I'm going to use Nasty Knuckles as a marketing arm for some of these other projects, because again, you know, a lot of hockey players deal with addiction and need help, figuring out how to manage stress and anxiety and flush inflammation. So a lot of overlap. So just going to continue to move forward and push the good word.
That's awesome. I'll definitely push the good word about Nasty Knuckles and Riley Cote. And shit, I think I would need yoga with your schedule, man. That's fucking, your shit's crazy.
You just got to get up extra early, man. I'm up early, and I have to buy some time before my two girls get up. You know, I got two young girls, and but I've always been somewhat of an early bird, but now it's extra early. But you know, I practice my meditation every morning, and depending on the day, sometimes I bang out my actual physical practice of yoga. Sometimes it's later.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I read. I mean, I do read some like scripture stuff, and yeah, it's really interesting how the mind works. You know, I'm like just a absolute studier of the mind, and like I'm just so obsessed with how it works, and I've just learned that. I mean, I think it's not a secret that however you program it, it takes on that programming, right? So it's like it's pretty simple, right? I mean, if you fill your head space up with shit, you call it the mental factory. You fill it up with shit, it's hard to produce something positive out of shit, right? I mean, it's like when you're talking,
Yeah.
Garbage movies and listening, being around negative people or things, and this energy you take on, and then versus the opposite. It's like when you start filling your headspace up with positive, affirmations, and you start talking to yourself in a positive, respectful way. And instead of worrying about the past, you start focusing on the present, and, simple little things that have been, taught since the start of time, really.
Oh yeah.
But it's amazing how your mental health changes, and it's called epigenetics. You can actually change your DNA through meditation and the way you think, and it's the way you talk to yourself, right? Because it's
Right.
your body just the emotion just responds to what you think. So you could right away think of like something scary and something that's going to scare you, the boogeyman, and all of a sudden you can put put yourself in a state of anxiety, right? I mean, it's like, but
Yeah.
you also
Definitely.
control that, right? You also control that and be like, I'm safe, I'm strong, I'm good. There's nothing to worry about. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Breathing, just simple breath work. You know what I mean? Become
Right.
shallow breathers, and imagine just like tapping in your breath. It's like, oh, feeling a little anxiety. So I'll just go into a little meditation, or, maybe just focus on my breath for 30 seconds. It's just, but
Right.
you have the ability to control that. And it's just empowering people to realize that that's emotional intelligence, right? It may be able to identify with emotion and change your thinking based on how you're feeling. So no one wants to be anxious. No one wants to be depressed. No one wants to be, any of those, negative vibrations. But the reality is that you do have the ability to pull that in, whether you think you do or not, right? I mean, that's another thing, but the discipline to do that. So I'm obsessed with just like the brain and like changing, your vibration, increasing your frequency through thought, right? And then like the whole idea of like, Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich is like using that same philosophy around wellness, around business, and
Right.
start, visualizing, success, and visualizing connections and growth, and, things coming together again, instead of just staying idle and thinking that I'm not worthy enough, or I can't do that. Or it's just like life is a beautiful thing. It's like we're, in shamanism, it's like we're in a dream, right? We're creating our own dream. Well, a lot of people are asleep. A lot of people are waking up to their dream, but realizing that you're the artist in your own dream, right? So it's like what you think becomes a reality. And I know it seems like, oh yeah, well that makes, yeah. I mean, yeah, we all know that, but it's so true that actually once you make that a practice, life becomes joyful and fun. It's like,
Yeah.
yes, you got everyone's got their issues, right? Stressors, but you just kind of are okay with the friction or the bumps in the road because they're expected, and you're okay with them, right? And you just adapt and find solutions. But pretty interesting perspective, coming from a guy, for me personally, like I somehow found my way to the NHL, and all I can think of, like, now being more mindful, be like, well, the only reason I ever actually played in the NHL was because I was so driven, you know what I mean? To my point of just like believing in something enough. You believe in something enough, you can find a way to make it, a reality, and you can put it into creation. But for me, it was just like I just wanted it so much, and I wasn't even mindful. I was just like, I was always like, just knew that I was going to find a way. Right. I mean, whether that way was like in the grand scheme of hockey players successful, not one NHL goal, 156 games, and, like 75 NHL fights or something, whatever the total number was. But like, I realized that, like, again, looking back and, being honest with my life, was like, I wasn't fulfilled. And I mean, a lot of like, it didn't, like, all this work and all this energy was towards a goal, and I accomplished that goal, but I wasn't overly like spiritually fulfilled. It was like, where's the rest of it? Like, where's that feeling that I'm supposed to feel? So there was, that driver of just like pure spirit, and taking that, into the world now is like with more mindfulness, is that like like imagine being mindful enough with all your thoughts, and if you could, harness them and direct them into a very productive way. If I would have like thought about that back in the day, I could have been like 25 years ahead of where I am today. You know what I mean? As far
Right.
as like
Right. Yeah.
not
Yeah.
wasting time, burning up idle time by overthinking, and, you know what I mean? And, whatever, wasting time at the bar and all this other stuff. And, but, shoulda, woulda, coulda. And, I'm not that I'm feeling like regret, because I've learned so much from it. And that's really what kind of like gives me the energy to kind of do what I'm doing today, is just like, I just experienced such a different life that I feel like I haven't even scratched the surface of what I'm really here to do. and I'm, not even 40 yet, and I, again, that doesn't, it's not old. So, and I feel really good. I feel a million times better than I did when I retired in 2010. So, yeah, I'm just going to keep going with it, and just, if you keep focusing, I'm just again, focusing, everything's kind of on the brain and focus, like, just like reeling it in, controlling your thoughts, and finding peace, within certain situations and people, and forgiveness is another one for me too. Just again, it goes back to just being emotionally aware. You're carrying all this negative energy when you like hold grudges, or you hold on to energy from things in the past. So forgiveness is an important one, and self-forgiveness too, right? It's like you're not beating yourself up. Like I was beating myself up, like, fuck you fucked your hockey career up by just over partying and being an animal and all this other shit. And was like, I'm okay with that. That's what needed to happen for me to learn my lesson, right? Life's all about lessons, and taking that lesson and not repeating it, now making something of it. It's part of my story. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Part of like my,
absolutely.
concussion stuff, and the substance abuse, part of my story is that I avoided a traditional substance abuse program and used plant medicine. I used cannabinoids and psilocybin functional mushrooms, so like, that's part of my narrative when I'm talking about that in that wellness space, that there's another way outside of traditional AA programs and substance abuse programs. Like plant medicines are drug diversion. I wouldn't even consider them drugs at all.
Right. Yeah.
That's my opinion. I mean, we got to define what a drug is, because it all seem to be lumped into the same category, and unfortunately they're not. So, um, yeah, no, it's just, yeah, I think part of healing is being vulnerable and being honest, right? I mean, you have to be accountable to heal. Otherwise, if you're not admitting what you're trying to heal, you're never going to heal it, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot of that comes to, again, going back to say attachment or addictions, right? I mean, they're a little bit the same. They can be different, but we're attached and or addicted to everything. It seems like, right? Everything can be
Mhm.
an addiction, and we talk about addictions always like, oh, it's heroin addiction, or and booze. Even
Yeah. There's
booze
a
is
lot of
that's
different
like
ones.
light. Yeah, I mean, we kind of like say, oh, just an alcoholic, it's just an alcoholic. Like,
And
um,
food is
food
an
is the biggest
addiction.
one, right? That's the biggest
Yeah.
one. But with that one, we dismiss completely. Even you go to a
Exactly.
traditional AA program, it's like food is like, okay, well, this guy could be like 500 pounds and completely addicted to sugar, just like crack cocaine. But well, that's just like accepted as like, okay, well, he's just got big bones. I don't know, like, you
Yeah.
know.
Fuck
Uh,
it.
but like, if you want to be
Just let
honest
them
with
go. Lose weight. That's my simple answer. No, these people have a legitimate disease. Like I saw a show where they're just eating fucking garbage,
all day
like
long.
Twinkies with fucking whipped
Yeah,
cream all the way up. Like,
yeah, I know. I've seen it before. It is like, I mean, in the food world, it's almost, it would be like, someone that, gets into the oxy world, the heroin world, is like, jacking their arm up all day on the streets. It's like, it's just that
yeah,
version. I mean, it's that extreme. But then you have like, the businessman that can be hooked on an oxy, but still pull it together and look professional. Right. I mean, so you got different levels of like addiction, right? I mean, they're all addiction. It's just like,
oh,
how
absolutely.
obvious and destructive is that addiction? You know what I mean? And in the food world is like, if you get that addicted, it's like, they're literally like, they're so cracked out. Their body's just craving 1 ounce of nutrition, and all you're giving it is empty calories, just chemicals
Mhm.
and empty calories and sugar, and just your body just like, give me one mineral, one vitamin. It's just like
Yeah.
when you're so dehydrated, like, just give me one drop, just give me one drop of water.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I mean, they're so disconnected to their bodies, and they're so disconnected. It's like it's almost nearly impossible to reel that in at that point.
Right. And my last thing, which was great for you to say, living in the present. That's been with me for a while because with mental health issues I've had, it's like if you go backwards, that's depression. If you go forward into the future, it's anxiety.
Yeah.
So it's like if you stay in the present, you'll be okay. You just need to, do certain types of techniques like you said with breathing and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So a lot of people just ignore it and then it gets worse. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that, and then and it's a good lesson for people just to live in the present and you know don't worry about the future or the past.
Yeah, it's not easy to do.
No, it's not
It's,
at all.
it's a
Not
lot
at
of
all.
work, right? It's a lot of discipline, and cell phones don't help that at all, right? I mean,
Oh,
I
they
always
WebMD
talk
this
about like,
shit.
yeah, I mean, look,
People
I
doing
think
that.
it's
Yeah.
the worst drug out there is the phone, man, because it's a constant attention, it's constant notification, it's triggering, the brain. It's always wanting more, it wants more, it wants more. So like the best thing I say in my mindfulness practice is the best thing in the morning is to like not look at your phone at all. Like, if you can for like 45 minutes, just like wake up and just be. Because at one point, it wasn't that long ago that humans didn't have cell phones. We didn't have this constant, attention grabbing, technology that was robbing you of being present,
Wait, we didn't?
reminding you. Yeah, I know, right? Exactly. Reminding you of the shitty pictures and the shitty weekend you had, and you know what I mean, or whatever else. It's like, so you start emotionalizing your past behaviors, and all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, I can feel all depressed because it's like, oh, I look like a slob there, or whatever, Facebook, I mean, and all these
Oh
other.
yeah. Yep.
And then again, it's like, well, now we're competing with Joe Blow and looking at this, and now anxiety is like, oh, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, oh, I gotta look like her, oh, I gotta be like that, and I gotta look like him, and I gotta drive a car like that, and like, you know what I mean? It's like all of a sudden
Yeah.
it's like, you're not. There's no way you can live present in the present there. So it's like, unless you're a master at understanding like how to balance technology and being present, which I'm working on as well. That's probably one of my biggest challenges, because I mean, like in the digital marketing world and being able to turn off my phone and being present. You know what I mean? It's you have to have discipline. There has to be some sort of boundary there. Otherwise, I mean, which
It's gonna
was once a
consume you.
tool is not a tool. I mean, it ends up being a weapon. It's not in that tool category anymore. So,
Yeah, it's gonna consume you for
yep.
sure.
So,
But Riley, I want to thank you for coming on the show. It's an honor to have you on here, and hope to work with you again. And I appreciate you coming on, and we'll do something else. Maybe you can get Voracek and Giroux and everybody in your whole room over there.
yeah, right. That'd be something. Oh wow.
well, thank you again, and it's been an honor, man.
Likewise. Appreciate you having me.
Thank you.
Conversation.
Thanks, brother, and we'll talk to you again.
Sounds good. Take care.
All right.